Hello and welcome. This video is about the Percy Jackson musical, also known as the Lightning Thief musical. This video is in no way meant to hurt or to be hurtful, or to tell you shouldn't like this musical. If you like it, rock on. This also isn't meant to insult the people who worked on this musical. This will simply be me explaining things I don't like about the musical and explaining why I don't like that. A harmless critique, if you will. Warning, there will be spoilers for The Lightning Thief. I will be avoiding spoilers for the rest of the series entries, but it is a good book, and I would recommend reading it. If you haven't, but you won't need to understand this video. You have been warned. Quick note, this is my first long-form YouTube video, so hopefully it will only get better from here. Quick background, I have read all the Percy Jackson books. I read them with my older sibling, and they are very dear to me. This is one of the first book series I read through. And I read through the Percy Jackson and the Heroes of Olympus, to the Heroes of Olympus, and the Kane Chronicles. That is the part of the series that I stopped at, but I have read The Lightning Thief at least 5 times, so I think I'm qualified to give my honest opinion on its stage adaptation. And I am a fan of the series. This video was not made from hate. Quick warning, I will be showing some footage from the stage production. And they have a lot of flashing lights, so if you're sensitive to flashing lights, beware. Although, I don't think I will put very much of it into this video. Without further ado, the video. The context. I'm assuming that anyone who clicked onto this video knows Percy Jackson, but in case you don't, here's a brief explanation. Perseus Jackson, who everyone refers to as Percy Jackson, is a character made by American author Rick Riordan, who many fans refer to as Uncle Rick. And I may later in the video. He created these characters for his son, who is diagnosed with ADHD and dyslexia, to help his son feel better and see people like him being represented. This is important because all of the heroes, the Half-Bloods, the children of the Greek gods, have ADHD and dyslexia. Off topic, but part of the reason why I love these books as a kid is because I was diagnosed with ADHD. And while I was never diagnosed with dyslexia, I did have learning disabilities that caused me to be a delayed reader and have a harder time than most of my peers reading. The reason given in the books are that the Half-Blood's brains are meant to read ancient Greek, not modern English. And the ADHD helps them with their battle instincts, so it's helpful for them to stay alive. My cat has a lot of energy. Percy Jackson and the Olympian series, shortened to PJO, or the Percy Jackson series, is a book series that follows Percy as he grows as a person and demigod. The Lightning Thief is the first book in the Camp Half-Blood Chronicles. It was made into the movie adaptation, which people don't talk about because it was trash. It's like the Shakespeare play that's named after its titular character, Macbeth. I watched both of the movies, then it was made into the musical, which is what I will be discussing today, and now it has also become the Disney Plus TV show. The Lightning Thief's music was made by Rob Ricocchi, and the book by Joe Trax. I'm so sorry for mispronouncing your names. Okay, now we're on to our next section of the video. This is where I'll be going through what happens. So this is Act 1. Quickly, I want to say that this is from the Lightning Thief's musical's wiki, with some minor changes by me. After this, I will discuss my feelings and go through the songs. Percy Jackson, a teenage boy with ADHD and dyslexia, is on a field trip to the New York Metropolitan Museum of Art. While there, his substitute pre-algebra teacher, Mrs. Dawes, asks to speak with him. Once alone, Miss Dawes transforms into a Fury, a mythological Greek demon of Hades, thanks to a pen that transforms into a sword named Riptide, thrown to Percy by his Latin teacher, Mr. Brunner. Percy manages to fend off and vaporize Mrs. Dawes. After the incident, Percy is expelled from his school on the grounds that he failed to stay with the group while being on probation. When Percy tries to explain what happens, he is shocked to find out that neither Mr. Brunner, nor his best friend Grover Underwood, nor anyone else remembers Mrs. Dawes even existing. This all happens in the song The Prologue / The Day I Got Expelled. Percy says goodbye to them and heads home for summer vacation. Back at the apartment, his mother, Sally Jackson, seems to understand and even forgive Percy's expulsion, while her husband, Gabe Agliano, also known as Smelly Gabe, does not. Smelly Gabe abuses Percy and Sally. Sally confesses that she needs to tell him about his father, who left before Percy was born. Sally takes Percy to the beach where she met Percy's father. Percy, extremely bitter about his father and upset with himself for being expelled yet again, regrets his actions and becomes increasingly hard on himself. Sally assures Percy that his quirks and abnormalities of someone are what make them special in the song Strong. The two run into Grover, Percy's friend from boarding school. Percy is shocked to learn that Grover is a satyr. Satyrs are half goat and half human from Greek mythology. Suddenly, a minotaur, half bull, half man, attacks the trio. Sally sacrifices herself so that Percy and Grover can make it to the place she calls camp. Percy kills the minotaur to avenge his mother with the pen sword Riptide. Wait, if you're really a monster, that means this is really a sword! Whoa! But it is kicked in the head and falls unconscious. He dreams of a man in a Hawaiian shirt who gives him a seashell, claiming what belongs to the sea can always return to the sea. Which segues into the next song, The Minotaur / The Weirdest Dream. When Percy awakens, he finds himself in a place called Camp Half-Blood. The shell from the strange man in his dream remains in his pocket. The camp director, Mr. D, who is actually the Greek god Dionysus, he is the god of wine and madness. He is at camp for a punishment since he had a romp with Zeus's favorite wood nymph. He reluctantly explains to Percy that he is a demigod, which is the child of a Greek god and a mortal. This all happens in the next song, Another Terrible Day. Mr. Brunner, who is really, forgive me for his name, I don't know if I'm going to be saying his name right, so it may be lowkey triggering. Mr. Brunner is really Chiron, an immortal centaur. He is also at camp and explains to Percy that the gods will send a sign to claim him. However, Percy is still skeptical and angry that his father has never shown any sign of interest in him. At all. Luke Castilian, the son of Hermes, sympathizes with Percy, telling him that many half-bloods never know their godly parents, as they are not claimed, which causes the song Their Sign. Percy settles in and meets several other campers, such as Selena Beauregard, a daughter of Aphrodite, Katie Gardiner, a daughter of Demeter, Clarisse LaRue, the daughter of Ares, who immediately dislikes Percy, and Annabeth Chase, a daughter of Athena, who took care of Percy while he was unconscious. Annabeth quickly takes the helm as leader during a game of Capture the Flag, instructing Percy to sit and wait in the boys' bathroom so he won't mess things up. Clarisse singles him out and tries to pulverize him, but the toilets unexpectedly burst and soak her during the song Put You in Your Place. After things settle down, the campers sit around a campfire and sing about their unsteady and in some cases harmful relationships with both their godly parents and their mortal parents in the campfire song. Right after the song, Percy is claimed as the son of Poseidon, god of the sea, and that Zeus's lightning bolt has been stolen, and Percy is the likely culprit. Percy is told that he and two others must go on a quest to retrieve the bolt and prevent a war between the gods. He is also sent to receive a prophecy from the Oracle of Delphi, which in the song, The Oracle. After the Oracle's prophecy, Percy is upset that he has to leave Camp Half-Blood for a quest that will be unsuccessful, so he sings, Good Kid. Percy only accepts the quest because Luke hints that his mother will be in the underworld, the location of the search, since Hades is now rumored to be the real thief. Annabeth Grover force themselves into the quest, and after a pair of winged shoes is given to them by Luke, the three are thrust into the woods with little care or protection, which causes the final song in Act 1, Killer Quest. I also want to quickly explain why it's believed to be a half-blood. It is explained that none of the other gods could have directly stolen Zeus's lightning bolt, so the likely suspect is a half-blood, because any mortal who touched it would die. And also, on top of that, the big three gods, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, all pledged to not have any more children. any more half-blood children after World War II, which was caused by their children. So now I will be discussing the songs from Act 1. In this section, I will be discussing the songs in Act 1. Note that I don't have any formal training in music. My qualifications for this is that I have ears. I do play the piano and sing, so I'm kind of qualified. I'm going to start with what I like about each song. Then if I have something I don't like about the song, I will say it then. I'm emphasizing that the songs are incredibly important to musicals. They are meant to progress the story, say something about a character's mental state, or what they want, etc. I will also say that I will be discussing my main problems in the section discussing Act 1. Song number 1, the prologue / Day I Got Expelled, which is sung by Percy and the ensemble. This song starts right when the curtains open, technically a little before the curtains open. I'm going to read an excerpt from it. I am reading because I don't want to deal with copyright in the music. I will be doing this throughout the video. Thank you for understanding. The gods are real, like the Greek gods, like the ones you learned about but weren't paying attention to. Well, they don't pay attention to you either, especially if you're their kid. This is the very beginning of the musical. It sets the mood of the musical and shows how dysfunctional the demigods and their parents are. It also shows some of the feelings that the half-bloods have about their godly parents. Later in the song, we have the iconic line from the book. So if you think you are a half-blood, better get heading to the exits now, 'cause folks will think you're lying. Better run and don't start crying, 'cause you're a monster, chow. Or stick around and maybe you'll learn from me. This ain't Odysseus' Odyssey, so hear me out if you're so compelled. My thoughts on The Day I Got Expelled is that it's a very good introduction to the show. The song is really fun and tells a lot of story. It also starts where the book does, and gets us up to where Percy is going home. It also gets him through being attacked by Mrs. Dodds, his pre-algebra teacher, and then getting expelled from school, which is the 6th school in 6 years, and that he was expelled from. This song moves the story along, which is important because you have limited stage time and every song needs to move the plot along. This show is only 1 hour and 15 minutes, and the Lightning Thief audiobook is over 10 hours long, so everything needs to move the story along. I love this song, and I don't really have anything to say about it in a negative manner, so moving on to song number 2, Strong, which is sung by Sally and Percy. The song starts in their apartment with Spelly Gay. It then transfers to the beach where Sally met Percy's father. This is the song where Sally comforts Percy over being expelled, about how he isn't a failure, and how she loves him. It mentions their love of blue food, which I think is a fun reference that feels natural in the scene, since they are making s'mores on the beach. This alludes to Percy's father being Poseidon. A couple of the lines from the song are, I first saw him in the water, coming out of the morning mist. He was handsome, strong, and before too long, you came to exist. Percy then responds, yeah, and then he ditched us. No coming home for dinner. Yeah, he sounds like a real winner. Sally then responds, Percy, he didn't have a choice. He wanted to meet you, and he warned me that things might be hard if you were like him. Percy responds saying, was he a screw-up too? Sorry, Mom, if I was only normal. Sally responds, hey, blue food isn't normal. Blue food is strange, and that's why it's my favorite. I never want to change. To make it boring orange or green, why be blah when there's aqua marine? Normal is a myth. Everyone has issues they're dealing with. Percy says, Mom, if you're weird, you're weak. Sally responds, that's where you're wrong. The things that make you different are the very things that make you strong. So be strong. I'm gonna let my dog out because she's crying. Strong shows us, the audience, Percy and Sally's close relationship, and like I mentioned earlier, gives the audience hints at who Percy's father is. This song gets you to care about Sally, which is very important, because ignore my dog, she's trying to fall asleep. Which is very important because her presence in the underworld is what causes Percy to go on his quest. So their relationship is key to the plot. And in the next song, Sally sacrifices herself to save Percy. So we need this to be established now, to make her sacrifice hurt you, the audience, and make you feel emotions. I don't have anything that I don't really like about this song. It's lovely. I will say, I don't know if the conversation with Gabe needed to be as long as it was before the song starts. Now I'm going to make a very smooth segue into the next song. Song 3, The Minotaur / The Weirdest Dream, which is sung by Percy, Sally, Grover, and the ensemble. I'm going to break them up into 2 songs, since it'll be much easier to talk about, and this song also feels like 2 songs to me. At the very least, it might just be me though. The Minotaur picks up pretty much where we left off. Grover warns them that they are in danger because of the Minotaur, which is hunting Percy. They then try to run away, but the Minotaur gets them before they get to camp. Side note, there's a bird toy. Side note, this hasn't been explained in the actual musical yet, but camp has a magical border around it that only half-bloods and friendly creatures can get through, so once they get to the border, Percy and Grover would be safe. I'm not going to read an excerpt because I don't feel the need to. I think this song is okay. It really moves the plot along, which is important, and it's a plot-relevant song. Shit happens. The Minotaur is attacking Sally's death. We also see Percy in action, respond in action to his mom dying. That being said, the music itself is rather weak. It's mainly talking and screaming over music. After Sally's death, Percy passes out, which does segue smoothly into the Weirdest Dream part of the song. Come on, Emma. Come on, all the way. The Weirdest Dream. While Percy is unconscious, he has a vision. He has a vision of a man in a Hawaiian shirt, who we, the audience, know as Poseidon. He tells Percy what belongs to the sea can always return, and then gives Percy a seashell. Remember the seashell. It will be important. Percy... Hush! The Weirdest Dream. While Percy is unconscious, he has a vision of a man in a Hawaiian street, who we, the audience, know as Poseidon. He tells Percy what belongs to the sea can always return. He then gives Percy a seashell. Remember this. This will be important. He then sees Annabeth and thinks she is an angel, which is cute because Percabeth. That was also the first... Can I help you? Side note, Percabeth was the first child meet ship, so they are very near and dear to my heart. It will also start the dynamic with Annabeth teasing him and saying, "You drool in your sleep." I also think this part is adorable, and I think it's important because Annabeth is a key character to the series and to this book, so her being introduced is important. She is the daughter of Athena, and in fact is the only one in the show. That is all that happens in this song. I honestly think The Weirdest Dream is a fine song. So moving on to Song 4, Another Terrible Day, which is sung by Mr. D, aka Dionysus. Another Terrible Day, which is sung by Mr. D, aka Dionysus. My excerpt from this song? Just another terrible day at Camp Half-Blood, where everything's the worst. Just another terrible day. When you're in charge, it's like you're cursed. Well, technically, I am cursed. Want to romp in the woods with Zeus's favorite wood nymph, and you're stuck running a summer camp for a bunch of needing half-bloods. So you can see that this is a fun song, and it sets up camp, aka the setting, well. It tells you who Mr. D is, and it also tells you about who Mr. Brunner is, which is how we find out that he is actually a centaur. It's also the song where Percy finds out who his father is. Well, not actually where he finds out who his father is, but he finds out his dad's a god, and how he is a half-blood. Notably, he doesn't know which god his father is because he hasn't been claimed yet. The album version is sung by George Salazar, which definitely helps. I love George Salazar. Everything is better with George Salazar. The song has a decent amount of fan service in it. Katie Gardner, Selena Beauregard, both sing a bit, and Selena mentions Charlie Beckendorf. But he isn't actually in the musical. This is important because Katie, Clarissa, Selena, Luke, Annabeth, and Percy are the only half-bloods in the show. And, well, Grover's the only satyr. All these characters are the only ones at camp, plus Grover. Well, not plus Grover. Grover was mentioned. On to Song 5, Their Sign, which is sung by Chiron, Percy, Luke, and Grover. This song shows us Percy's pain and anger towards his father and how he feels neglected by his father. An excerpt from the song is, "So if my dad's a god, I want to know which one. He's got a lot to answer for. He showed no sign that he ever existed, no sign he might actually care. My mom raised me all by her lonesome. When I would reach out, no one else would be there. Will I want my birthday cards and fishing trips, child support and homework tips. Don't mean to whimper or whine. The guy didn't need to be dad of the year, but it's clear he could have shown us a sign." This song also sets up Luke very well. Him and Percy are both bitter about how shitty their fathers are. This song also sets up Luke a bit. Him and Percy are both bitter about how shitty their dads are. Luke's dad is Hermes, god of messengers. This song also shows us how the gods don't have to claim their children, and we see Luke's bitterness over this. Here's a little excerpt from Luke's part of the song. "I'm going to be your counselor. The Hermes cabin takes anyone who hasn't been claimed. You know what that means? We're literally the reject cabin. So welcome to the dysfunctional family." I think this is one of the best songs in the musical. It shows us how similar Percy and Luke are and how they have similar feelings towards the gods. They share resentment and bitterness. They want things to be better for the half-bloods from the gods who screwed them over. It's a fun song to listen to and sets up the ending of the musical. So, moving on to Song 6, Put You in Your Place, sung by Clarice, Annabeth, and the ensemble. This song covers Capture the Flag, which is iconic in the books. Do note that they are intense with Capture the Flag. They will stab you to win, with swords or spears, some of which will be electrified. Percy is on Annabeth's team. She is leading the team since she is the daughter of Athena, goddess of wisdom and battle strategy. She sends Percy to the bathroom so he doesn't get in the way. In the bathroom, while Percy is waiting for the game to end, Clarissa, daughter of Ares, comes in. She is mad that he got to fight a minotaur on his first day when she has been training for years. In the bathroom, Clarissa tells Percy, "Heard you were tough, but you don't look it. Your goose is cooked. I'm here to cook it. Maybe the minotaur died from a case of laughing too hard from seeing your stupid face." Clarissa then tries to harm Percy before the toilets explode at her and push her away, which ends the song. The toilets exploding is shown with the toilet paper blowers, which makes sense in this instance since they are in a bathroom. I find this song fun, but I do have some problems with it. I don't think it moves the plot along, and one of my problems with Act 2 is how fast and rushed it feels, which I'll talk about more later in my section about either pace, which there... Because if I look, I do have problems with Act 2, and there's an entire section later on about the pacing problems. So I will talk about it. Song 7, The Campfire Song, which is sung by the campers and Chiron. This song is about how bad the campers' parents are, mainly on their godly parents and occasionally their mortal parents. We get Annabeth's story about her rocky relationship with her dad, and how her stepmother is, and that she ran away from home. We see all the campers' resentments towards their godly parents. Every camper sings a bit except for Clarissa, and Grover even sings, even though he doesn't understand the vibe in the room, and he ends up singing about how great the god Pan is, and everyone else is kind of shit-talking gods. The part of the song that I don't particularly enjoy is when they invite Percy to sing his part, a part. This part always makes me feel awkward, and it's painfully uncomfortable to me at least. Since he doesn't know who his godly parent is and has never met the guy, he sings about his mom. Selena tells him he is doing it wrong, and Luke tells Percy to sing about his godly parent. But dude, you know he doesn't even know who his godly parent is. It is literally his first day here. Give the boy a break. Also, Annabeth was singing about her dad. You guys like Grover not sing negatively, but Percy doesn't, you guys are upset? I do enjoy Percy's part when he gets into it, but this song doesn't really do anything for the plot. We already know how the campers feel resentment towards their godly's parents, and that Percy is hurting. I fail to see what the song does for the story. It also has a problem where, to me at least, it makes camp feel smaller because every camper in the show is there except for Clarissa, and it's just the 7 of them, including Percy, which makes it feel small. All campers should be at the campfire for dinner, right? I mean, Clarissa isn't there. Is she just not having dinner tonight? Where is she? My dog. Okay, so my dog, you might have heard her barking a minute ago. She does not want inside. She's laying in her kiddie pool. What the hell, dude? Anyway, another important thing happens right after the song. When Percy offers a sacrifice to the gods, a part of his food, which is required every night, a trident appears over his head, telling the world and the audience that Percy is the son of the sea god Poseidon. Another important thing to remember is, like I mentioned earlier, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades all agreed to not have any children because their gods were too powerful, and because they were on different sides of World War II, and it almost wiped out humanity. So Percy being alive is enough for Zeus to want to smite him. Anyway, moving on to Song 8. The Oracle, which is sung by the Oracle, Percy, and ensemble in the attic of the main cabin. Excuse you. The Oracle is currently a mummy. She is the Oracle of Delphi. She tells Percy his prophecy. You will go west and face the treacherous Lord. You will find what is stolen and see it restored. You will be betrayed by one who calls you friend, and you will fail to say what matters most in the end. That's the main thing in the song, and I like it. The song copies the prophecy from the book, and I think it works well. The song tells you what you need to know to go on the quest, and the music feels creepy and eerie, which is fitting for the vibe. I fully approve of this song. So moving on to Song 9, Good Kid, sung by Percy and ensemble. This is a song where Percy sings about the anguish and shows his mental space, which is important, and shows his mental state, which is important because unlike the book, we are not in his head. A bit from the song is 6 schools in 6 years, being kicked out of every place. Everything I ever do is wrong. Never find where I belong. Everybody on my case. The same old story. The same old song. Don't act out. Don't act up. Don't act out. Be strong. I keep my head down. I keep my chin up. But it ends up all the same. With pack your bags Percy, you're always to blame. I never try to do anything. I never tried to hurt anyone. I try to be a good kid, a good son. The song mainly sets up Percy's mindset at the end of Act 1, which is important. It is also one of the things in the songs musicals are meant to do, show the internal battle of the characters. Good Kid is honestly a fucking bop. It's great. The upcoming song is the last one in Act 1. It is Killer Quest, which is the 10th song. Killer Quest, which is sung by Annabeth, Percy, Grover, and ensemble. This is a song where Percy agrees to go on a quest, although he agrees to do it for his mom, not for the gods. Grover invites himself along, and Annabeth also invites herself along on the quest. This is a fun song, and something that I love is the foreshadowing this song has for the ending. I love how Luke is the one who convinces Percy to go on to the quest. He also gives Percy shoes with wings on them. Remember this. It will be important later. Okay, now that we have covered all the songs in Act 1, let's move on to the next section of this video, things I like about Act 1. Okay, note, I'm not going to be discussing individual actors' performances, I'm discussing the technical elements and the script. I love the set. They have a lot of different sets throughout the musical to show different locations. I love all the levels, the amount of climbable places there, and I think they use it well. The set changes are very smooth. There is really nice lighting design. The lighting changes during fights make it look more dramatic. Because they flash and change colors. You get it. Some of the monsters look really cool. I really like Grover's legs. They are very cute. Luke and Percy's motivation and feelings of upset are well done in Act 1. They both come off very charismatic. The toilet paper blower is cool. I like the look of the Oracle, and she sounds creepy. I like that. I like the underworld as a record company in LA. I love the bit where Luke talks to Percy about his quest. This will come up in Act 2. This is where we learn about his quest and how his father sent him to steal an apple from a garden. I love how Luke is the one to convince Percy that he should go on his quest. I like how Percy instantly agrees when he realizes he could save his mom. I love the foreshadowing and the awkward reaction Luke makes when Percy mentioned that the Oracle told him he would be betrayed by a friend. I love how Annabeth and Grover invite themselves into the quest. Those are the things I like about Act 1. So now let's move on to things I feel neutrally about in Act 1, but that I feel like I should mention. I'll admit, I might not have named this section very well, but I'm running with it, so you can't stop me. All the actors are clearly adults, which I think is fine since in a stage production you have a higher suspense of disbelief. They also don't specify how old their characters are. Percy is in school, so vaguely teen. Chiron's tail, it looks kind of silly, but I don't have a better idea, especially since he gets up from his wheelchair and is half horse. So I think it's fine. The Minotaur fight looks kind of silly. Before Capture the Flag, Annabeth explains that ADHD is a battle instinct and dyslexia is to read ancient Greek. I think this is fine. It is in the book, but the explanation don't really feel needed since it's not really mentioned. I can't help but wonder if Percy could have been claimed right after the bathroom scene. I wonder this because both Capture the Flag and the Campfire Song establish the same thing. It isn't a problem, so it's on my neutral list. That's the entire list of things I'm neutral about. Now we're on to things I don't like about Act 1. Now I'm going to talk about parts of Act 1 that I didn't like. I will try to give an explanation that makes sense and make it so you understand my perspective. Sally's writing dreams are mentioned for a minute, and I wonder why, because there was no payoff to that. The only payoff would be in a sequel, which doesn't exist. Clarissa gets introduced in Capture the Flag song, Put You in Your Place, and I don't want this to sound harsh, but is her presence needed? She doesn't do anything, and anything that an unnamed person could do. She doesn't add anything to this show. She doesn't add anything into the show, and this show struggles with screen time, so I wonder if she adds anything. Okay, so this one, I can't blame the actors, but the stage fighting, which was intended, and I have to assume in the script, because it takes a decent amount of screen time, the fighting looks really silly, because you have to do it slowly so that actors don't get hurt, and it just looks a bit goofy to me. 44 minutes into the show is when we find out about the quest and the stolen lightning bolt. 44 minutes in is when we find out about the plot of the musical. And there's only another little over an hour after you know what the plot is. So it's at the 44-minute mark when you set up the plot for the next act. Okay, so now we're on to Act 2. And this is my slightly edited wiki read. Act 2 starts with three questers escaping a bus. Girl on camera. With 3 questers escaping a bus, which was attacked by 3 Furies, just after blowing it up. They then become hopelessly lost in the song Lost. In a frantic decision, Percy suggests they should enter Auntie M's garden gnome emporium. The strange Auntie M wants to take a picture of them, but she is revealed to be Medusa. Percy cuts off her head with his pen sword Riptide, and as a way to get the gods' attention, sends the head by mail to the gods. Annabeth seems particularly upset with the run-in, so while Grover scouts out their surroundings, Percy questions her about it. She confesses that she's always been ignored by everyone around her, and that She is desperate for a chance to prove herself to Athena, her mother, and make history books in the song My Grand Plan. Grover returns with train tickets to St. Louis, and they set off, encountering many dangers along the way, such as a chimera, nasty storms, and the Lotus Hotel and Casino. They also met up with Ares, who gives them a lift to Nevada in the song Drive. While on a bus to Los Angeles, Percy has a dream of a man speaking with someone whom he refers to as my lord. The powerful voice mentions sacrifices and brings up a name, Talia, in the weirdest dream reprise. Percy wakes with a jolt and asks Grover if he has ever heard of someone named Talia. Grover confesses that a few years ago he was sent to escort Luke, Annabeth, and Talia, Zeus's daughter, to camp. On the way there, they were attacked, and Grover failed to save Talia, who sacrificed herself and was turned into the tree that protects the border of Camp Half-Blood. Grover holds himself responsible and thinks Percy must be ashamed of him in the song The Tree on the Hill. Percy assures Grover, no matter who he is or what he does, Percy will always want him as a friend. Percy brings up the oracle, said that they would fail their quest, but Grover and Annabeth all reaffirm their devotion to one another. The trio arrive in the underworld, where they are given a tour of the horrors by Charon and several long-dead musicians in DOA. Percy realizes that the lightning bolt is hidden in his backpack, and the three work out how it could have gone there. Percy is nearly dragged into Tartarus by the shoes Luke gave him, and the group discovers, after a brief conversation with an innocent Hades, Percy withdraws the shell from his pocket and blows it, realizing it was from Poseidon. It opens a portal out of the underworld, vowing to return and to save his mother. Percy, Annabeth, and Grover escape. Percy hypothesizes that Ares was the one who planted the bolt in his bag and comes to terms with himself and his father. He then declares himself a son of Poseidon. With his powers of water and the help of Annabeth and Grover, he beats Ares in the song Son of Poseidon. The trio returns to camp as heroes, but Percy couldn't be more troubled. He confides in Luke that he feels just as confused as before, and Luke tells him that he also felt that way after his own quest. Luke tells Percy that he is the lightning thief, and that he has teamed up with Kronos to get back at the gods, who he feels have done him wrong, in the song The Last Day of Summer. Luke attacks Percy and flees after Annabeth, and every other person at camp appears. Percy declares that there will be a war, no matter how they try to stall it. But he and his friends will be prepared to do whatever it takes to fight. In the song, Bring on the Monsters. Okay, so that was the wiki read. Now I'm going to take you to my section, Songs in Act 2. In this section, it'll be pretty much like the same as Songs in Act 1, where I go over each song, what they do, who sings them, things I like and don't like about them. Okay, Song 1, Lost, which is sung by Percy, Annabeth, and Grover. In this song, you won't believe it, the main trio is lost in the woods, and they are never gonna make it to LA. They discuss their worries, that they will never complete their quest, and that they will die in the Garden State. They find a squirrel and try to ask for directions, but Percy insults the squirrel, and after he apologizes, the squirrel runs off. While they are all panicking, they ask Percy to choose a direction to travel. Percy ends up pointing to where Medusa lives. I like how it shows the worry and perils of traveling as a half-blood, since monsters are quite literally trying to kill you at every turn. This song is also where it is established that the half-bloods smell tasty to monsters. I have to admit, I do find the squirrel bit really funny. Anyway, on to Song 2, My Grand Plan, sung by Annabeth. This is Annabeth's I Want song. It's the only I Want song in the musical, so I'm a sucker for it, because I love me a good I Want song. She sings about her dreams, and how she feels forgotten and overlooked by her mother, and how she wants to do something great, and wants to be remembered. A little excerpt from it is, My grand plan is that I will be remembered. Just you wait and see. You better rise up, and I'll wise up. Bring on any challenge, and someday soon, someone will notice me. I love this song. I have no notes. Okay, so on to song 3, Drive, which is sung by our trio, Percy, Annabeth, and Grover. This is probably the song I have the most issues with, but before I get into them, let me say what I like. Drive does move the story along. It's a fun to listen to. Ironically, I find that too much happens in this song, which is ironic since I have been complaining about how songs aren't doing enough. But hear me out. When the song starts, they are in the New Jerseys, and by the end of the song, they're in LA, and are about to go into the underworld. In the woods, the squirrel gave them Amtrak tickets, and the song starts with the trip. They get to St. Louis, meet the Chimera. Then Aries shows up and offers them a ride and takes them on his motorcycle until they get to the Lotus Hotel. They don't go into the hotel because Annabelle knows the hotel is magical since it's named Lotus, and since the lotus beds exist in the Odyssey, and she knew it was magical and had to be avoided. I think this is a little goofy, but it's fine. There is a bit of fan service when Percy talks to the girl at the hotel. She got to the hotel, and she says she has been there since 1939. I say this is fan service since the girl is Bianca, who becomes important and later in the series. So the trio just walked past the hotel. It feels unnecessary to me to add the arc with the Lotus Hotel since they are mentioned, then just walked past. And the other things in the book that were removed for the stage production, like the guy who sold mattresses and tried to stretch the kids to make them longer. They then get onto the bus, which causes the next song, Song 4, The Weirdest Dream Reprise, which is sung by Percy, but it's about the voices he's hearing in his dream. One person is talking to a voice in a pit. An excerpt from the song is, "Sacrifice is necessary to remake the world. Remember what the gods have done. Remember Talia, and when I'm free, wait. Someone is here, listening even as he dreams. Hello, Perseus Jackson." The song does a lot, shows that people are working against our heroes. It also gives some foreshadowing for Luke's betrayal. And the next song gives even more breadcrumbs, but I'll talk about that in a minute. This song has foreshadowing, this song also foreshadows what happens when they get into the underworld. Anyway, moving on to song 5, Tree on the Hill, which is sung by Grover, and Grover's played by George Salazar, so I love it! This is Grover's big emotional song. In it, he tells Percy that before he was assigned to take care of Percy, he was taking a trio of half-bloods to camp, Annabeth, Luke, and Talia. The journey didn't go as planned. They were chased by monsters and got lost on the hill above Camp Half-Blood. Talia made the final stand. She got a life-ending injury, and Zeus turned her into the tree, which is on the hill. Whoa, tree on the hill? There's a tree on the hill. Now, if you remember from about 2 minutes ago, one of the voices mentioned Talia as a reason that the other person should help them, and why sacrifice needed to be made. One of the charms of Tree on the Hill is that it hits you with the feels, because Grover is very open about his guilt and how he regrets it, and how he blames Talia's death on himself. A line from the song is, "For nothing would shake its wrathful will, we had to make a stand. And maybe if I'd been a little bit braver, maybe if I'd stayed behind to fight, but maybe doesn't let me go back and save her. Maybe doesn't make it all right." And poor Grover thinks that Percy wouldn't like him anymore, and wouldn't want him around anymore. Poor Grover. Thankfully, right after the song ends, Annabeth overheard it, and tells him that it isn't his fault, and that he shouldn't blame himself, and that he is the reason that she is still alive. So my little guy thankfully feels a little bit better. On to the next song. Song 6, DOA, sung by Charon? Sorry for the name again. The name of the song is a bit clever, since it's, welcoming to the underworld. DOA, dead on arrival. See, it's clever. This is a fun song. It's upbeat, which helps the mood since the last song was so sad. This show is a comedy. A couple of lines are, "Down here you're DOA, and you're here to stay. Yeah, you're stuck forever. Never get away. No hope for survival. You're dead on arrival. That's pretty much the entire song. I will say if I had to choose one song to cut, it would easily be this one, since it doesn't contribute anything to the story. Since it doesn't add much to the story, all it adds is getting them into the underworld, but I feel like that could easily be shown in a different way. And at this point in Act 2, it's getting very go, 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 as I will later explain. Since everything else feels very quick and rushed to me, it feels a bit out of place to have a song that essentially adds nothing. I will say that I love the fate cause of death the trio gives, which is the same in the book and the musical. It's that they drowned. In a bathtub. All three of them. Anyway, on to Song 7. Son of Poseidon, which is sung by Percy, obviously, since he is the son of Poseidon. Off topic, but in the script, every time I've written Poseidon's name, I've spelled it differently. Sometimes it's just P-O-S. Sometimes it's capital P-O-S-Idon. Sometimes probably P-O-S-Idon, spelled probably incorrectly. After song 6, but just before song 7, as the trio are walking to Hades' palace, where they are walking to the palace, Percy's shoes try to drag him into the pit. These are the shoes that Luke gave him. They start flying towards the pit, but Percy, with the help of his friends, are able to get the shoes off. They realize that the pit is Tartarus, and the voice from Percy's dream was Kronos, who I'm assuming you know who he is in case you don't. He's the father to most of the Olympians, father of Zeus, Hades, Poseidon, Chiron, the centaur, not a god, but still, and many others. And as mentioned in the prologue, he ate his children and vomited them up. After that, the trio find that Ares set them up because he hid the lightning bolt in the bag that he gave Percy. The trio tried to leave the underworld, but Hades found them. After a bit of talking, he reveals that he saved Sally and wants Percy to trade the bolt for her. Hades mentions that Poseidon wears Hawaiian shirts, which makes Percy realize that the guy from his dream wearing a Hawaiian shirt was his father. Now on to the next song. Song 8, Son of Poseidon. My excerpt is, seems my good intentions always crash and burn. Everything I try to do will fail. Never once will I prevail. Percy and Sally sing, what belongs to the sea can always return. Then Percy speaks, it's a seashell. No, it's a gift from a god, which is where Percy understands that the seashell he was given was their way to get out of the underworld. After this, Percy promises to his mom that he will return and save her. He then blows on the shell. It's a conch shell, so it's one that makes like the iconic brrr sound. You know what I'm talking about. This teleports Percy, Annabeth, and Grover out of the underworld and onto the surface. By the coast, the trio talk about Ares and how he was the god that was trying to start the war. So Percy challenges him. So Ares appears, and the three of them fight him. It isn't going very well for our hero, since he is literally the god of war. This is before Percy uses the ocean and washes Ares away. I quote, I'm the son of Poseidon. I never asked to be, but I'm the son of Poseidon. Now face the tide inside of me. Something I do like about this song is the part where Percy and Ares' duet is very similar to Clarissa's and Percy's. I like this because Ares is Clarissa's father, so I don't know, I like that. This song is fun and upbeat, but something that I have mixed feelings about is when Percy uses the ocean. I mean, that's what happens in the book, so I don't have a problem with it, like, contextually or narrative speaking, but how they visually represent it is with multiple toilet paper blowers. To me, I'm not sure if it really makes sense. I mean, I get that I don't really know how else they would show it, but it's not like they're in the bathroom this time, so it makes significantly less sense. I just don't love it. After the Son of Poseidon ends, Ares has defeated, Poseidon appears and talks to Percy for a bit, and brings Sally. And as Percy wisely says, this is the weirdest family reunion ever. After Poseidon leaves, Percy gives Sally Medusa's head, and They discuss how the only reason she was with Gabe was to protect Percy, since Gabe was so smelly the monsters couldn't smell Percy. This does make me wonder if that's how it works. Because he's not a demigod? I don't know. Moving on. Our trio then returns to Camp 2, which leads to Song 9, The Last Day of Summer. This song shows us how Percy feels now that he's returned to camp. Percy sings that how he feels that he changed, but camp is exactly the same, and how he doesn't know how to go back to normal. He confides in Luke, and Luke tells him, and I quote, "I get it. My quest was supposed to be the biggest thing in my life. I came back changed, but the rest of camp was exactly the same." Chiron always says our parents made camp as the safe magic space. The truth is, it's so they don't have to see us. They won't bother to show their faces. It's time to make the world our own. Time to someone put them in their place. Ares thought we were starting a war between the gods, but it was bigger than that. It was about wiping them out and taking our turn. It was at this point that Percy realizes that Luke was the lightning thief. They fight. Luke runs when every other being at camp shows up. And I mean everyone shows up. This leads into the final song of the musical, Song 10, Bring on the Monsters. This is the final song where they decide that they are not going to back down from the fight. This is also where Percy decides that he's going to return home with his mother for the next school year, but he vows that he will be back next summer. I'll be back next summer. They'll see me again. I'll be back next summer. I'll survive till then. This is a fun song, and I love it. It's a great ending. It also gives almost everyone a chance to dance on stage before the show ends. Curtain close right after Bring on the Monster ends. We will now be moving on to things I like in Act 2. I like the squirrel from Lost. He's silly little guy. I like the show mentions the rivalry between Poseidon and Athena. I also like the bit where Annabeth says that she doesn't hate Percy. It was really cute. I liked how eagerly Sally ran off to murder Gabe. That was fun. I like the bit where Annabeth told Clarissa that they saw Ares, aka her, also known as her dad, and she asked about him and gets excited. I love how Percy realizes that Luke is the lightning thief. I like this because Percy is a lot of times shown to be the dumb one, at least in the books. And I love that this shows he isn't dumb. He's just surrounded by really smart people. By people, I really mean Annabeth. I like that Luke tried to convince Annabeth to join him. I think this works since we get a bit of their backstory earlier. Okay, now onto things I feel neutrally about in Act 2. The butts exploding off screen. I can't blame them because I don't really know how you would show an explosion on screen production, so I'm fine with it. Which is why it's on the neutral list. Oh, this is something that I wrote in my notes when watching the musical Slime tutorial, but I wrote that the actor who played Hades, the accent he was using reminded me of the guy who played Squidward in the SpongeBob musical. This is also off topic, but I used to think that Ethan Slater was hot. Unfortunately, he cheated on his wife and left her and their newborn to date Ariana Grande, which made him a lot less attractive and made my attraction for him die. He also looks like he's aged a decade or two since, and it's only been like 5 years. Moving back on to topic, I am neutral with showing the ocean moving with toilet paper blowers. Like I said earlier, it's fine. I feel neutral about the conversation between Sally and Poseidon. It's kind of nice to show they care about each other, but on the other hand, it does feel really awkward, and I'm not sure if it's needed. Thing I don't like. No, that this thing is singular. I'm only mentioning one thing because if I say my main complaints here, I will just be repeating myself later, and I don't want to sound like a broken record. To me, at least, and note that this is for the Broadway version that I watched, camp felt really empty. At the end, the only campers there dancing to Bring on the Monsters, there were only 5 campers, not including Luke, who by this point had already left, and Grover, who's a satyr, so he's different. This makes camp feel really small. Although this could be a budget issue, because they most likely don't want to hire more actors, so it's fine, but I felt it should be on the list anyway. Moving on to the next section, since I want to evaluate how the Lightning Thief musical is as an adaptation, which is why we need to figure it out. First, I will look at what other people want in an adaptation. My first source is BYU, which is Brigham Young University. I'm only using this because the article was the first result in Google that wasn't AI. Their requirements are: 1. The person making an adaptation must have genuine love for the source material, which I think the person making the adaptation must have genuine love for the source material. 2. Understanding book versus movie storytelling. In case you couldn't tell, the article I used was about movie adaptations, but I think it works fine since movie and stage adaptations from books are pretty similar process. I'd imagine they have similar run lengths. I think the Percy Jackson series can work really well in other mediums besides from books. The problem is I don't think it always does. And I do think this works fine in a stage adaptation. 3. Subtraction. Knowing what's important. Knowing what you need to cut. 4. Knowing where to play. Knowing where to add. Most adaptations add something to the story. I don't think this one does, since there wasn't anything added in the show that wasn't in the book. The only things I could come up with are that they hinted at Bianca's existence, which didn't happen in the original, and instead of a poodle, they met a squirrel. If you can think of other things, put them in the comments. I'd love to see. 5. Must have good storytelling. 6. And new versus old, which is understanding the amount of leeway an audience will give a creator over changes. This is according to BYU, but I wanted to look at another source to see what other people think make a good adaptation. If you are still here, you should think about what you like in an adaptation. According to filmsandfiction.com, an adaptation must be 1. Faithful to the source material. 2. Be original. Don't try to make a one-to-one adaptation. 3. Broad appeal. 4. Honest. Be honest. Don't try to convince people that this adaptation is something that it's not. And that's it. Personally, I'm not sure that I feel that either of these lists capture what is needed for a good adaptation. But since I have seen some other people's list, I'm going to try to make my own list of what I think makes a good adaptation. Take in mind, my list is not in order of importance. For an adaptation to be good, I think it must: 1. Have the soul of the original piece. 2. Be faithful to the original piece. 3. They must know when to kill their darlings. 4. Must know what will transfer to the new medium. 5. Must be approachable to the audience who has experienced this, to an audience who has not experienced the source material. 6. Must use the new medium in a way that they could not be used in the original. That's my list. Tell me yours now. This is a bit of a side tangent that I'm calling musical Russian roulette. In a minute, I'm going to talk about my biggest issue with the Lightning Thief musical and the pacing problems that I see. But real quick, I want to tell you a story. The story of when I first saw the musical. I will set the scene. The year was 2023. I was in high school. I was a theater kid in high school. Shocking, I know. I've only been talking about the show for editor me, put the amount of screen time. I'm currently on page 23 of my script. One of the other high schools in my area was putting on the PJO musical, and I got it free since I had a thespian card. Thank God. Let me tell you, this was the worst show I have ever seen. And I'm not trying to shame anyone. And I sincerely hope that everyone involved had a good time. But the singing was physically painful. Majority of the actors struggled to hit notes, and the pitch was awful. People looked confused at what they were doing, where they were going. I absolutely loved it. Majority of the audience had walked out by the end of the show. Less than half came back for intermission. But that show made me decide I want to go to all the high school shows I can, because it's my form of Russian roulette. Theater roulette, if you will. I can't look away from a train wreck. I love it. After the show, one of my friends talked to one of their friends who was in the show, which is how I found out something so very interesting. When talking to people in the show, they revealed that every night the actors who were playing different roles and were changing what they were doing, which made a lot of sense. In a weird way, that night inspired this video, so thank you sincerely. Now back to the actual video. Welcome to the pacing problems. This is the big part of the critique, at least in my opinion. The pacing problems of the Lightning Thief musical is what I believe is the weakest link of the musical. Remember that all of this is my personal opinion, and it is totally okay for you to have a different opinion. Feel free to tell me how wrong I am in the comments. Act 1 is rather slow. It takes time to set things up, but has some resting time, dare I say it? A bit of filler. But I don't think that's a bad thing. But I will bring up in a minute. We, the audience, didn't even find out what the plot was going to be until the 44th minute mark. Before that, we only knew that Percy was a half-blood, and some setup. Take in mind, intermission starts at the 56th minute mark. That means there's only 12 minutes in Act 1 where the audience knows where the rest of the show is going to go. Let me repeat, 12 minutes. To be clear, I know that the people who are seeing this show most likely know the source material, but you shouldn't need to do homework to go to a show. If it's a standalone movie, you shouldn't need to do homework to know what's happening. This musical is a standalone. Hello friends! I had to take a small break because my laptop was dying. By that I mean its battery died. And I was also losing my voice for a little bit there. I'm hoping I can get through this before it, So continuing on where I left off, Act 2 is where the pacing issues become clear. Act 2 has 1 hour and 6 minutes to tell almost the entire plot of the musical. We start while the trio is lost in the woods in New Jersey. They started in New York, and they need to get to LA. Act 2 is very fast. It goes from plot point to plot point. Bam, bam, bam. This is why I stated that Act 1 took too much time. Let's talk about the song Drive. This is the third song in Act 2. In this song, we start on the M track. The squirrel I mentioned earlier gave them tickets. Percy apologized. And the song they get from New Jersey to California, which I don't think is inherently bad because most of the traveling isn't something that we need to see. But I do have a problem with the amount of references that the song contains. They mention the St. Louis Arch, and when I say mention, I meant mentioned. The conductor says, St. Louis, everybody off. Annabeth says, look, the Gateway Arch. Percy responds, whoa, look, a lady with a puppy. Aw, is that a chihuahua? Hey, little whoa. Enchanada, I'm sorry for saying her name like that. And no, you would not know her name if you were just watching the musical, because this is all she says, or does. She just laughs and says, it's a chimera. Then she just walks away. Then the trio just go back to finishing their song. If you were watching this without context of the book, you'd have no clue what just happened, or why it happened. In fact, I don't know how or why this was included, but some of the other monsters weren't. In case you were thinking, it's because the nymph Percy sees in the water under the arch. Even though how did he fall into it? Anyway. If you're thinking that, no, you are wrong. You are wrong. They don't do that in this version of the show, which I think is fine because you need to change some things in an adaptation. I just fail to see why this was kept in. I feel like it was just for fan service. Moving on to later in the song, when the trio get to the Lotus Hotel, Annabeth realizes that since it's named a Lotus Hotel, they shouldn't stay in it because the Odyssey. Which I think is fine enough. I think that is a normal name, even though I think that is a normal name for a hotel. Regardless, they just talk in front of it for a minute, talk to Bianca in one line, then they just move on. And this also makes it feel a bit chaotic. That being said, I admit My complaint so far has been rather nitpicky. That being said, I would like to tell you, a very common saying in the writing community is, kill your darlings. This phrase is about having to get rid of something you love and have put time into. But if it isn't important to the story, if it doesn't fit the theme of the rest, or for so many other reasons, you have to kill it. I think a large problem of this show is that it wasn't able to kill its darlings. It kept things that should have been cut. Anyway, the pacing that I think is the worst in this show is the Son of Poseidon. And right after the song ends, the song starts when we are in the underworld, right before the trio used the seashell Poseidon gave them to get out. They discuss what happened, realize Ares is the god who has been trying to start a war between the gods. They challenge him, he appears, they fight, they win. That all happens in one song. And to me at least, it all feels very fast. Then right after, and I mean right after Poseidon appears, has a quick conversation with Percy, brings Sally back to the overworld. Those two flirt for a couple minutes, then Poseidon leaves. Percy gives Sally Medusa's head, she runs off to commit murder, then we're just back at camp. The quest is over, we teleported there. To me, this just felt very abrupt and made it feel like the quest was left unfinished. I'm unsure if this was the intended, since in the end Percy feels like it wasn't over and feels unnerved. I honestly felt the same way. It could be intentional, but I don't believe it is, because in the book, which I know I've mentioned a lot, but in the book, a similar thing happens, but it doesn't feel unnerving nor jarring there, but Percy still feels that it's unfinished. But anyway, I don't think it was, since Percy was mainly feeling that he had changed and grown, and camp was still the same. Granted, I do believe that he only spent one day in camp. Yes, one day. Which makes me wonder, why does he care about camp and feel the deep emotional connection to camp? Since he spent like 10 hours there, and a decent amount of that time, Mr. D was threatening to turn him into a dolphin or to kick him out. On top of this, during this time, he was also harassed by Clarisse. Why does Percy care about camp in this show? The only reason I can come up with is because he's based off the book where he spent a lot more time and became friends with everyone. I watched the show, and honestly, the person he seemed closest to was Luke, by a large metric. Before getting into the next part of this section, I want to say that while I do enjoy all the songs, and they all sound very nice and are fun, do you remember a couple minutes ago when I mentioned killing your darlings? That mainly applies to this section, which is songs that didn't add anything. Put you in your place, and the campfire song both added the same thing, interacting with other campers. While the campfire song does show that the campers' resentment and anger towards the gods, so does their sign. The only thing it shows is others besides Luke's resentment. DOA is the biggest example to me, because what does it add to the story? This is a genuine question. What does it add? Sure, it's fun, but that's all. They could have easily gone into the underworld without a song in a quicker manner, or even with a song that just did more. Moving on to, is The Lightning Thief a bad musical or just a bad adaptation? I will be using my list from what makes a good adaptation. In case you forgot the list, 1. Have the soul of the original piece. 2. Be faithful to the original piece. 3. They must know when to kill their darlings. 4. Know what will transfer to the new medium. 5. Must be approachable to an audience who hasn't experienced the source material. Or 6. Use the new medium in a way that couldn't be used in the original. If you made your own list, feel free to think about yours and compare it. Number 1, I think The Lightning Thief musical does have the soul of the original. You can tell it was made with love from someone who truly enjoyed the book. It is very faithful to the original, perhaps too faithful. It only uses things that happen in the book, and doesn't add anything. 3. They must know when to kill their darlings. I don't think this show knows when something has to be cut or changed. 4. I think they use the medium of theater fine. I could see the argument that combat doesn't work since stage combat doesn't look nearly as cool or come off as cool, because obviously safety of all actors is the most important thing, and they can't actually be trying to kill each other. 6. I honestly think that they use live performance in a pretty good way. The songs, blocking, lighting, and set are all used in creative ways that I find enjoyable. You may have noticed that we went from 4 to 6. That was intentional. Let's talk about 5. I think this is the worst flaw of the show. The true downfall of the musical is that only someone who is already a fan, or at the very least is familiar with the book, would enjoy the show. I don't think that anyone who wasn't familiar with the source material would enjoy the show. I think they would have a hard time following along with what's happening. To be clear, I read the book before I ever watched the show, so I did in fact know what was happening, because I have read that book at least 3 times before I found out about before I found out about this show, let alone watched it. So I could be wrong. Act 1 would work well for a new viewer, and that's a big but. With how fast Act 2 feels, they would probably be confused. And because a lot of the jokes and references are references to things that happen in the book, like St. Louis Arch or the Lotus Hotel or their damn snacks, they would not be comedic to a new viewer, mainly confusing. I think this makes it a bad musical and a bad adaptation, because you shouldn't need to do homework to watch an adaptation. You didn't need to read the Iron Man comics to watch the Iron Man movie. You didn't need to read the Star Wars books to watch the movies, or vice versa. You don't need to read the Lord of the Rings books to watch the movies. You get what I'm saying. If you want musical examples, there are many musicals I could list. Newsy's musical is based on a movie, so is Heather's, and Chicago. They're all based on movies. There are many examples of musicals based on books if you want a musical based on books. Here's some. Goosebumps, All American, The Outsider, The Notebook, The Great Gatsby, Miss Doubtfire, The Curious Case of Benjamin Button, Spookly the Square Pumpkin, Matilda. I could go on, but if you watched any of these musicals without reading the source material, you would be fine. You would be able to follow along with the story and most likely enjoy it. And I don't believe that's the case for the Lightning Thief musical. I will say I don't think the Lightning Thief or any of the Camp Half-Blood Chronicles or the Kane Chronicles would adapt particularly well to live performances. On-stage battles never look cool in my opinion because of the safety of the actors. For on-stage combat, it has to be done very slowly, and it is hard to show magic, which is key to these series. Plus, they can't have dozens of actors in the background because that would be expensive, and not all stages would be big enough, which makes camp feel empty. There isn't enough time to set up camp and make people attached to it, or see why the characters are attached to it. On top of this, these books are also jam-packed with action and things happening, so I think it would be difficult to shorten them down to 1 or 2 hours. Anyway, on to the next section. In this section, I will try to explain what I would like to change about the musical. Do note that I will be trying to keep things within the original budget, so I won't be changing the amount of actors, nor any changes beyond the script. I will also attempt to keep my vision similar to the original. I would cut Gabe out of the show. This may sound extreme, but hear me out. In the live show, there isn't enough time to dedicate to everything, so we have to choose what is really important. Sally is a side character in the show. She is mainly important because she is important to Percy. In my version, we don't have time for her arc. And in the actual show, we only get pieces of her story, and it feels rushed and incomplete. Worse than if it wasn't added, in my opinion. Next, during Put You in Your Place, I wanted to take away some of the emphasis on the fighting. Besides that, this song is the same. But right after, when Percy becomes Lord of the Bathroom, Percy will notice everyone is looking above him. He looks up and he sees the sign of Poseidon, the trident, or as Percy says, a giant fork. This will cut out the campfire song and throw us into the plot of the show. We will continue the same as the original, but Act 1 ends with Drive. Although in my version of Drive, we will be removing the St. Louis arc bit from the show. This will leave us in California at the beginning of Act 2. The Weirdest Dream reprise will be the same, as will Tree on the Hill. Once we get to the underworld, we will meet Charon, but DOA will not be included. The song does not add to the story, and it does not set up the atmosphere of the underworld. I would suggest we have a different song in the underworld, one that is more eerie and involves more struggling to get past Cerberus, seeing Souls of the Departed, overall sneaky vibes, because in the musical, it feels very easy to infiltrate the underworld while still being alive, which shouldn't be possible. Things will be the same way with The Shoes. and the things will be the same with the shoes, and things will be the same until the end of Son of Poseidon. This is where my version changes the most from the actual play. Once the two defeat Ares, instead of Poseidon coming to them and talking, the trio will be teleported to Olympus. The teleportation will be communicated in a similar way as the teleportation outside of the underworld. There will be bright lights, some of which will be flashy, some screaming from the actors, and perhaps the use of the fog machine, which is shown in the battle with the Minotaur. They will be teleported to the throne room where both Poseidon and Zeus will be. Zeus will be grumpy, similar to the book, but after a minute, he will take the bolt and leave. At this point, Percy and Poseidon will have a similar conversation to the original. At the end, Percy will ask about his mom and how Hades has her. Poseidon will promise to have her returned. They will then talk and then tell them it is time for them to leave. The scene ends. The next scene, they will be at camp, same as the original. It will feel very similar, but at some point when Percy and Annabeth are talking, Annabeth will ask Percy about his mom, and he'll respond that she was back in New York and safe. From this point on, it'll be the same. This is the end of my version. What do you think? What would you change? Tell me in the comments. Okay, so that's the end of the video. Finally, right? I know I'm glad it's over. This script is 29 pages, so I have been recording this for about 2 hours. A bit more than that now. My voice is killing me. What do you think of the video? Do you enjoy the musical? Tell me in the comments. Also, if you have any, feedback, tell me in the comments. Okay, bye-bye.